Hello again and welcome. Last episode, I spoke with instructional designer Amy about what copyright is and its importance in learning and development. Moving on, this episode I will be continuing my conversation with her on some of the legalities of copyright and how to avoid infringement. Stay tuned to learn more. As we start to dive into this, there are many legalities when dealing with copyrights and making sure infringement does not occur. So, can you explain some of the key things we should be aware of?
So infringement is just pretty much you took something and you infringed on the rights of whoever created it. We have a couple different, aspects when you're looking at this, and we talk about like giving credit or, being able to modify something, and I think everybody's heard of these things. There's the rumor out there of the 30% rule that, if you modify something 30%, that it's fine to be able to use it and you can use it, free. Or if you give credit to the artist or to the author, that you can go ahead and use it. And that's not exactly how it works. So especially on like imagery, which is one that, really is one that we use quite a bit, there's a lot of things that have been set up now that you can go and find if the artist has given free rights. They want to be able to allow their work to get out there, because a lot of artists do. They want their work to be seen. They want, people to be able to use it. Some of them want them to be able to use it, with them being given credit. Some of them don't want it with credit. So you have to find that individual information per work of art if you plan on using something.
Mm.
So, especially say we Google an image, which we've all done. You Google an image, but then there are, and luckily it's come a long way, there's something that's called Creative Commons. It's actually a space where people can give the licensing rights, and they can collectively put free documents in there, so they can put the images and things that with permissions already in place. So like us being able to go and look somewhere like that to see if where the permissions are, what are the permissions set at, that really gives us a nice sounding board. And also on places like Google, they've now added like metadata into imagery, so you have the artist's name, you have, the date that it was created, what licensing is available. So all of that is now becoming available on these sites. So we have the royalty-free sites, which is where the permission's already been given, but then we have the open source sites like Google, Wikipedia, those type of sites where we just do the free search and see what we see. The things with like the Creative Commons that was really interesting is that it does understand it's a nonprofit organization to help with like the legal obstacles to the sharing of knowledge and creativity. So it gives it a good place to go and see how those licenses are read, and like how you can read each of the license types and understand them. So when you do start seeing, it's licensed through, whatever it is, which doesn't make sense to a lot of people, being able to have somewhere to go and, okay, this is what this means. I can use it for this. I can't use it for this. It's just kind of a nice resource, especially as an instructional designer, to be able to have that.
I can definitely agree with that. And, that's a great segue into my next question, which was, how do we avoid getting ourselves into a situation with infringement? How can we avoid that?
Like I said before, a lot of times we are given source material, and, there's a picture that they've used, probably 1,000 times in their training. And now we're rebranding, we're repackaging, we're redoing a course, we're working on a project for them. And a lot of times they're tied to that image. So when we go and we take a look at those images, we have to do our research too. We have to go in and, find the image. And if it is something that's copyrighted, then one of the biggest things that is recommended is to request permission. So request permission from the artist to be able to use it if it's something that you really want to use that's copyrighted, because some artists will give you the information, they'll give you the rights to it, and you get that in writing, obviously, to be able to use the image. But some of them want royalties on it. So you need to make sure that you're doing that homework part of it. Is there an alternate image that we can use that is royalty free? It's also another question that we always need to keep in mind. We have all of these, especially with all our tools and tricks of the trade, where we can capture an image very easily. We have to make sure that we know that image is not copyright protected.
Of course. Now, with that though, what if a client gives you source material and you're unsure of where the images provided came from, right? So, or they give you an image that is straight from Google. At that point, who's responsible, and what are the alternatives?
I mean, the responsibility is kind of on both people. When we talk about using things for your internal projects, and you're not making a monetary gain on it, it's not out there in the world. But when you're making a profit and you're selling something, then you really have to make sure that you're taking that responsibility. Whether you're a learning and development manager, or whether you're an instructional designer, you're a developer, whatever you're doing, you need to make sure that you're checking where the sources are coming from, taking that question, can I find an alternative image to this? Would that be acceptable for you? Obviously, if a client says no, then you're going to be jumping through the rights to use those images.
Well, thank you, Amy, for sharing your insights on some of the legalities of copyright and how to avoid infringement. In our next episode, we'll be discussing where you can find references for copyright law and things to keep in mind as an instructional designer when it comes to copyright. Until next time.